Hello there, everyone, and welcome to GamePoints episode 311. Your weekly get-together, we talk about recent gaming news. I'm, as always, your host, Stephen Brown, and tonight we do have a few things over the past week we have to get into. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 seems to be dated. We have some unfortunate news of Saudi Arabia investing into Nintendo, and it seems Norman Reedus will be carrying his little fetus again because he might have let slip that Death Stranding 2 is in development. But first, I want everyone here to know that this is an audience interactive podcast. So if you're watching here live at Twitch TV/GamePoints at Tuesday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or later over at Rumble, YouTube, BitChute, wherever you happen to might find this video, feel free to join in the conversation. With any questions, comments, etc. that you might have, just try to keep them germane to the topics on hand. Hello there, Stuffy Twitchy. Good to have you as always. Yes, had to do a second take of this one. I opened up and, well, just forgot what I was supposed to say and started stumbling over myself even more than normal. So this is going to be somewhat of a fun show, I can tell you that already. Anyways, enough of the prattling. Let's go ahead and get into the first story of the week. Not, in my opinion, the biggest, but definitely something worth getting into due to the nature of the game. This one up here is from GameSpot. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 has a release date of October 28th. Cool. We all knew this was coming. There's almost a yearly Call of Duty at this point. I think they took it off last year. I'm pretty sure they took it off last year. It's one of those things that if I have to think about it, I don't remember. And now that it's out there, I think they did take it off last year, though. Activision has revealed the release date for the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and a new trailer showing off various pieces of character art. The sequel is coming October 28th, 2022. The trailer debuted in usual fashion, showing pieces of character art on tanker ships and shipping containers, all building the image of the fan-favorite character Ghost when all the pieces come together. The trailer also teased the appearances of Captain John Price, John Soap McTavish, Kyle Gaz Garrick, and a new character, Mexican Special Forces Colonel Alejandro Vargas. Those characters will all make up Task Force 141. The reason why the setting to this is important is because for those who played the recent Modern Warfare and then as well as played the original trilogy, you realize the first game in the first Modern Warfare, the first level, took place on a container ship as you were tracking down nuclear weapons. The most recent Modern Warfare kind of served as both a reboot and a prequel to that trilogy. So I'd be very curious to know if Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the new one, the 2022 release, will be setting up the events that happened in the first game. We'll find out, of course, later this year. I've always enjoyed I don't want to say always. I typically enjoy the Call of Duty campaigns. I don't play the multiplayer much anymore, though. But Modern Warfare as a series specifically stood out for me, and it was, in my opinion, one of the better campaigns in a first-person shooter yet. So I'm kind of looking forward to having this happen. Let's see. Chat is asking if there are any PC and Xbox exclusives to appease their franchise's future owners. No. If you're looking for something this year, nothing's been announced yet that I know of. All the big stuff has been delayed. I'm sure we will get more announcements on what's coming out, however, in a couple weeks when all of the Summer Games Fest stuff kicks off and the not E3 shows. More on that later. Back to the article here. This may be the setting for the stage rumored in the June reveal of Modern Warfare 2, the rumored June reveal of Modern Warfare 2, I might add, likely to take part in one or more of the not E3 presentations. Activision has traditionally showed off pieces of its games at PlayStation or Xbox showcases, but this year there's also Summer Game Fest Live as a potential home for the reveal. All this, of course, is happening amid Microsoft's proposed acquisition of Activision, which would include the Call of Duty franchise. And which is why I don't think you'll see this shown at the PlayStation event. I think you'll be if there is a PlayStation event, rumor is supposed to be coming sometime in June, but we don't have anything official. This will likely be shown off, however, at the Microsoft Activision or the Microsoft Bethesda event, which I believe they are also showing some Activision stuff there too. Another one of those things that if I wasn't thinking about, I could have told you off the top of my head, but now that I stop and ponder about it, can't remember if I read that or if I'm just making it up. Either way, I do expect it to be at some kind of Microsoft presser as opposed to a Sony presser because of that said buyout. Anyways, not the biggest piece of news, not necessarily the most shattering piece. We all knew this was coming. We knew that there was a new Call of Duty coming out this year, and it makes sense to continue on rebooting the Modern Warfare franchise storyline, because I do personally feel that was the best one, and I don't think I'm alone in that. Moving on to the next topic here. This is also from IGN. Aha, let's go back at the top here. I think it's been updated though. Yes, Death Stranding 2 leak. We have the update right here, but we'll go to the original article first. Norman Reedus might have accidentally leaked Death Stranding 2 via IGN. Hideo Kojima is working on a Death Stranding sequel, according to lead actor Norman Reedus. Reedus told Leo Edit, and this is via Nibelon on Twitter, "We just started working on a second one. It took maybe 2 or 3 years to finish all the mocap sections and everything, and it takes a lot of work. And then the game came out and just won all these awards, and it was a huge thing, so we just started part 2 of that." Essentially saying, hey, you don't get a game that has this much buzz and don't immediately start doing a sequel is kind of what he's alluding to. Then, later on, good old Hideo Kojima ended up posting this, saying, hey, go to your private room, my friend. He's essentially admonishing Norman Reedus in a very playful manner, holding the barbed wire baseball bat made famous in Norman Reedus' show, The Walking Dead, of which he is one of the cast of. I shouldn't say it's his show alone. But this is kind of Hideo Kojima somewhat coyly confirming what Reedus said is true and is happening. Awesome. Actually, I take that back. I don't know if a sequel to Death Stranding is awesome. I loved Death Stranding. I thought it was an amazing game. I really enjoyed my time with it. And I know that a lot of people hated it. I know it's kind of divisive in that. But I don't feel the need to play another one. Like, I got what I wanted from that franchise. It didn't leave me wanting more. I got exactly what I was looking for out of it, and I don't really need to revisit that world. I kind of want to see these two do something else that's not Death Stranding 2, but as Reedus alluded to, once it starts winning all the awards and people were talking about it, and it just kind of became a thing of its own, which is one of those things that I wish, I both am happy that they found success with it, at least enough to justify a sequel, but also I want to see new things. Hideo Kojima has done more or less only 2, maybe 3 franchises over the past 20 years, and that's Metal Gear, Death Stranding, and Zone of the Enders, and even then Zone of the Enders might be older than 20 years at this point. I want to see him do some other stuff. But I still would play Death Stranding 2. That's not to say that I wouldn't. I'm a little disappointed that that's what they're working on. Chat's mentioning they have no more interest in deliveries. I totally get it. I totally get that the gameplay to Death Stranding 2 for a lot of people was just boring as hell. I was at a point in time where I was looking for that. Just the solemn strolling through a post-apocalyptic America I thought was really cool. I wouldn't recommend that for every game. I think just the entire vibe that game gave was just exactly what I was looking for at that time. And it does a lot of cool things behind the hood too. When like multiple people on different games walk over the same path, that path starts becoming more of a dirt trail rather than overgrown. The collective building of the highways and other devices to get you across the ruins to make faster deliveries. I found it very relaxing. So, yeah, I'd play Death Stranding 2, but I don't know if I want Death Stranding 2. Anyways, enough of that. Really not much to go on there other than the fact that Norman Reedus more or less said, hey, this is coming, but we have no details on what it could be. Next story here from Bloomberg. This one sucks. Headline: Saudi Arabia's PIF adds to Game Push with a 5% Nintendo stake. Sigh. 1 second. Saudi Arabia's public investment fund took a 5.01% stake in Nintendo Company, its third investment in a Japanese game company as the industry consolidates. The PIF, as the $500 billion fund is known, said Nintendo purchase was made for investment purposes, according to a filing from Japan's finance ministry. That's the same reason as given in previous developments, and the holding is set to make the Saudi fund Nintendo's 5th largest shareholder, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. The PIF has been building stakes in video game makers and esports firms over the past 2 years, turning to the Japanese market just as a weaker yen has made investments more affordable. The Saudi fund disclosed the stakes of more than 5% in 2 Japanese gaming firms this year, We had Capcom, the maker of Street Fighter and Resident Evil franchises, and the online games provider Nexion.com. Also, don't forget that the Saudi Arabia Fund bought outright, essentially, SNK not all that long ago. I think they have like a 95% controlling interest in it now. They essentially own it. Saudi Arabia has been beefing up efforts to create its own content industry, and the series of investments from Japanese game companies is likely a way for them to learn, said Hideki Yasuda, a senior analyst at Toyo Securities. A Nintendo spokesman said the company has learned about the Saudi investment from news reports and would not comment on the individual shareholders. Important to note, when you are a publicly traded company, you don't really get a say-so in who buys your shares, which is why I do believe the fact that Nintendo wouldn't have heard about it until the news mentioned it. It's not like they're keeping up tabs on every single person buying things. This is one of those things that when you're a public trade company could just happen. What I do hate, however, is the fact that the Saudi Arabian royal family is gobbling up parts of these developers that I enjoy so much, because Saudi Arabia, and specifically the royal family, it's horrendously backwards. Their human rights abuses are obscene. The royal family keeps an iron grip on that country. They treat women and minorities just horrendously. I believe not even more than a few months ago, they had like a mass public beheading of over 100 people. That's the kind of country we're talking about here. And this is the kind of people that are investing themselves and making money off the games that we enjoy. And it sucks. I hate it. I'm not going to tell you not to buy Nintendo games. I'm not going to tell you to buy SNK games. What I am saying, however, is that we need to keep this at the forefront of the conversation when it comes down to these things. We need to not let people just kind of go, well, okay, and saunter off going, well, that's just how it is now. Yes, to a degree, that is just how it is, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean we stay silent on these things. And I just really, really hate seeing this investment fund that is essentially money for the royal family of Saudi Arabia forcing their way into the hobby that we all love. It is a damn shame. Anyways, I want to know what you all think about this, by the way. This is one of those topics that I know that the bots are going to freak out and start downvoting everything, because anytime Saudi Arabia gets brought up in a negative light, there is clearly some kind of farm that is designed to protect the royal family's interests as well as the oppressive-ass government of Saudi Arabia. And they just start downvoting shit left and right. You go to any video that mentions this in a not glowing state, in a not glowing sense, and they will try to algorithmically, I believe is the word I'm looking for here, I'm stumbling myself, they will try to keep your word from getting out. So the more of you that actually speak up, the better. Let's piss those people off, shall we? Anyways, moving on to the next, something I find way more exciting and less annoyed by. This is a press release here from Nacon. Greedfall 2 is coming, and I am really looking forward to it. After the success of Greedfall, with over 2 million copies sold, Nacon of development studio Spiders are pleased to announce a new game, Greedfall 2. Continuing with the winning formula of the first game, Greedfall 2 is an RPG that focuses on story and player choice, but also includes new gameplay in the form of more tactical combat and revisits the unique universe created by its predecessor. The story starts 3 years before the events of the first game in the adventures of Darsade. This time you play as a native of Tirfrandi, uprooted by force from your island and taken to the continent of Gakane, where the colonists are from. I played the original Greedfall. I don't remember how any of these names were pronounced. I'm sorry. This old world ravaged by war and scarred by a Malachor plague and political scheming from different factions, you must regain your freedom and control of your own destiny, using diplomacy, cunning, or combat, as well as help from allies you make. It's up to you to end one man's ambitions of conquest, which very well could spend the end of the continent and your island. Greedfall 2 is planned for a release in 2024 on PCs and consoles. I loved Greedfall. Greedfall, you know what Greedfall reminded me of? Was old school BioWare. Not old school. Don't think Baldur's Gate, but think more like original Coder and Jade Empire specifically. It reminds me a lot of just the setting being different. And I am so happy to see this getting a sequel. I'm happy to see Spiders starting to get the recognition it deserves. I think they're an excellent development team. Really looking forward to Steel Rising, which should be out later this year. Every success gives them more money to work with, which means they're going to be able to polish up their games more and more and more. I think Spiders legitimately has the development chops to be an excellent studio. It's just they're kind of stuck in the lower mid tier of development. It's a shame that no one's investing in them more, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can do with Greedfall 2. And hopefully, Still Rising does very well, so Greedfall 2 gets an even bigger budget. Moving on to the next story here, yet another one from IGN. This one's kind of cringy. Battlefield 2042 removes 128 breakthrough multiplayer on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, and PC via IGN. EA announced that it will be removing Battlefield 2042's 128 breakthrough multiplayer mode on the next generation consoles and will stick with the 64-player count version. The change will be reflected in Update 4.1 when it releases on May 19th. It's already out. When reviewing the available experiences in All Out Warfare, we felt that the 128 player modes are better suited for Conquest, where the gameplay spaces are larger, and where you have more of a natural fit for sandbox gameplay, said EA on its website. EA knows the player count was reduced as it felt like each individual player's contributions were reduced to the sheer intensity and chaos during the combat that comes with 128 players on one map. As a result, squads in Breakthrough 64 have been a better opportunity to work with together. This is EA talking. I'm not going to read their stuff. I don't like this. I think this is one of those things that if it was a problem, who cares? People just won't play that map then. This feels like a cost-cutting measure. This feels like EA realizes that Battlefield 2042 isn't doing what they want it to do when it comes to sales figures, and they're looking at ways to reduce the cost of keeping the server open because they really can't just shut it down. They really can't just shut it down. At least not until the next Battlefield of this style of game comes out. Then they can start reducing capacity. This really does feel like them trying to recoup some of their losses. I don't like things being taken out of games. I add stuff to it. Okay, sure. I'm fine with that. But removing things bothers me. This isn't as egregious as when Bungie just vaulted a good half of what Destiny 2 had for content, albeit understandable why they did it. I get why they did it. Doesn't mean I like it. This has like that same vibe to it, albeit on a significantly smaller scale. I don't like it. And I don't think it's a sign of a healthy game that they're taking away features from it. And yes, this is taking away a feature, regardless of how underused it might have been, according to EA. It's still a feature going away that was in the game previously. And it's another reminder as to why an all-digital future, while it has convenience at its forefront, also has a lot of drawbacks. And this is one of them. The bigger question, I guess, is, was there 128 people actively playing Battlefield 2042 at a time to justify the size of this map? I'm sure there is. This isn't like, Babylon's Fall, that it only had one person playing that at a time? But it's not good, and it's another negative press story for this game that has just been battered since launch, and rightfully so, I might add. The criticism is not unfounded. It is fully deserving of all the flack that it's getting. But it is if I was at EA, I would have fought tooth and nail to keep this in there, because the last thing you need is yet another round of negative press. We do have some more stories from EA coming up later, but right now, I want to talk about this real quick too, because I thought this was interesting. Not so much in what the topic... It's one of those stories that I find that I'm not interested in the topic. I'm interested in what's said on like the 5th or 6th paragraph. Going to Video Game Chronicle this time, the headline, Geoff Keighley says to expect fewer third-party showcases this summer. Journalist and presenter Geoff Keighley has said to expect fewer third-party digital showcases this summer, as companies instead opt to include content in events like his Summer Game Fest show. Last year, companies such as Capcom and Square Enix received a somewhat negative critical response to their own digital events, which fans felt contained fewer announcements than anticipated. That is true. I remember waiting to watch the Capcom one. I think I streamed it. I think I co-streamed it. And it was bad. It was real bad. So I am fine with these third-party studios and third-party publishers going, hey, we're only going to show 2 games. Let's just tack them on to whatever Xbox has or whatever Sony's going to do and Nintendo's going to do, etc. This is good. I'm fine with fewer but bigger shows rather than weeks of a bunch of small little tiny announcements that are just crammed with filler. I am more than happy to have it this way. Back to the article. Speaking during a Twitter Spaces audio session this weekend, Keighley said the consumers should expect less third-party conferences this year as those publishers were less content those publishers with less content instead opt to participate in Summer Game Fest and first-party conferences such as the Xbox event as the showcase. Keighley said the following. There weren't a lot of shows last year when everyone was disappointed. There were a lot of shows last year where everyone was disappointed when they really weren't press conferences, right? Like Take-Two, Capcom, Square Enix, and things like that. I think they've learned that if you're going to do a press conference, you kind of need to have 30 minutes of stuff. And sometimes you only have 1 or 2 great games to show, which may not be enough to do a full event around. Keighley then added, so I think that's going to be a bit of a shift. I have a pretty good sense of what's coming next month, and I think people will be hyped about games in general. Here's the important part of the article announced down toward the bottom here. I think this is lack of game. I think there's still a lack of games coming out right now. This kind of COVID gap year, I think. Let me start over. Sorry, this is written a little weird for my eyes. There's still a lack of games coming out right now. This kind of is the COVID gap year, I think, with a lot of games being delayed as they were started during the pandemic. We're still hoping for a lot of things to come out right now. I have no idea why that was so hard for me to read. It just felt alien to my tongue, I guess. But that's the important bit that I want to mention up right now. Geoff Keighley is essentially saying, hey, there's not really many games coming out right now, which I think is him trying to train his audience to lower their expectations for what they might be hoping for this year. We're already hearing rumors of a whole bunch of stuff getting delayed till next year. We already had some major titles slip from this year to next year. Starfield, I'm looking at you. We have yet to have a date for God of War. We have yet to have a date for the rumor that we haven't even had an announcement for the rumored Last of Us remake. Who knows where Perfect Dark's at? Ubisoft is just silent on all of their stuff. The last thing I heard from them was talking about Skull and Bones and Beyond Good and Evil 2. 2 games of multiple year development cycles that have yet to really show anything for it. I think 2022 is going to be a repeat of 2021. That there's, I don't like saying that there's nothing to play because there's still plenty of stuff to get a hold of. But a lot of stuff that you thought might be hitting 2022 because it was delayed from 2021 is getting delayed till 2023, and we have yet to even begin to see the iceberg of that. It is going to be a very lean fall and winter for games, like again, I think, beyond the usual suspects, Madden, Call of Duty, etc. I think this is Keighley teasing that fact. He's not going to come out and say, hey, it's going to be a slow year, because you still want to keep some hype for the show. But I do get the feeling that he is prepping all of us to be disappointed with all the events happening next month, and especially if you thought they were going to be announcing games for this year. So just keep that in mind. And it's a good thing. I think Keighley realized he might have overhyped his last year's events to a point where people were actively starting to get pissed off at him. So he might be trying to dial back on the pulse of the crowd this time around. Just kind of go, okay, hey guys, just calm down. We have some good stuff to show you. There are going to be some good games coming out this year, but it's not going to be the smorgasbord you're expecting. Because I thought after 2021 happened, everything getting delayed to 2022, I thought this would be a jam-packed year. And for a second it was, when you had things like Elden Ring and Horizon Forbidden West and all that other stuff coming out within like a 5-week period. I don't think we're going to see much for the next couple months, possibly even until early next year, as far as a crowded release schedule like that again. Some people like it, some people don't. That's up to you, make that call. But yeah, I think this is Keighley trying to set the mood appropriately. Anyways, Next story here, guys, we do a hard jump to this. This is also from Video Game Chronicle. EA is allegedly pursuing a sale and has talked to Apple, Disney, and Amazon. This is yet another in a series of acquisitions that have been happening throughout the video game industry, albeit this one is more or less just hearsay and hasn't happened yet. I'm not surprised, and I wouldn't be surprised if EA does get gobbled up, or Ubisoft, who has been shopping themselves around, it seems, gets gobbled up, or Platinum Games, they're shopping themselves around. Clearly, rumor was that Square Enix was supposed to buy, or Sony was supposed to gobble up Square Enix, but that fell through. A lot of these people are looking to sell, and it does not surprise me that EA is now on that list. To the article. Electronic Arts is claimed to be actively pursuing a sale or merger in the wake of recent merger and acquisition activity in the games industry, such as Microsoft's $68.7 billion acquisition of Activision. That's according to a new report by news site Puck, which is paywalled, which claims that EA had, quote, been persistent in pursuing a sale, end quote, and recently held talks with Disney, Apple, Amazon, and Comcast, NBC Universal. Interesting choice of people looking to buy EA potentially. Of all those, I wouldn't be surprised if Disney did it, because EA and Disney already had somewhat of a relationship over the Star Wars license, even if it did kind of degrade into, I don't want to say hostile, but it wasn't a friendly parting, to say the least. Back to the article. It's claimed that talks to the latter progressed the furthest before eventually falling apart last month, with Comcast CEO Brian Roberts allegedly proposing to spin NBC Universal off and merge his company with EA. Comcast EA. That notice that is not necessarily a acquisition, that is a merger. So it would be like NBC Universal, it would be like EA Comcast. Oh man, I just realized Comcast and EA, these are two companies that are often voted the most like horrible company in America, or at least were a few years back. Could you imagine the people having a field day with that? Anyways, back to the article. The proposal is said to have fallen apart last month due to disagreements over price and structure. A spokesman from Comcast declined to comment, while EA said it would not comment on, quote, rumors and speculation relating to M&A. The report goes on to claim sources have indicated that the FIFA and Battlefield publisher has been persistent in pursuing a sale and has only grown more emboldened in the wake of the Activision-Microsoft deal. Last month, it was also reported that another major games publisher, Ubisoft, was attracting takeover interest from several private equity firms, including Blackstone Inc. and KKR and Company. Blackstone, I would not be surprised if they would have gobbled up Ubisoft. They're a big like investment group, so I wouldn't be surprised if they actually end up doing that. Weird though, the choices that we're seeing here. They're not selling to someone else in the games industry. They're looking to sell outside of it. So with how much money video games generate now in the billions of dollars yearly, I'm not surprised you have some of these bigger companies who have no input at all in video gaming looking to dip their toe in, or in this case, just outright buy something that already exists to start recouping some of that, or start generating some of that revenue. It's just unusual because normally it tends to stay in industry. You have like Bandai, Namco gobbling up. I'm not going to try to think of good examples right now because none are coming to mind. That's what happens when you're on pain medication for your neck. This is just Disney, Apple, Amazon, Blackstone. These are companies that are somewhat starting to gobble up what they see as deals. Apple and Amazon specifically are interesting because both Apple and Amazon are trying to get their own game divisions running as well. Amazon, most notably, are things like New World and what was that other Amazon game that didn't last? It got canceled. Anyways, don't remember, not really relevant, but expect this to happen eventually. If EA and Amazon or EA and Ubisoft want to sell, they'll sell. It just takes time and the right price. And I do expect one or both of these companies to be gobbled up or at least merged into a bigger entity before the end of the year. While on the topic of acquisitions, let's move on to this from gamesindustry.biz. TakeTwo completes its Zynga acquisition, with the deal finally closing on May 23rd, which was yesterday. Take-Two Interactive has completed the acquisition of mobile studio Zynga following shareholder approval from both parties last week. The transaction sees the Grand Theft Auto publisher purchase all outstanding shares of the company for approximately $12.7 billion. Take-Two announced its intent to buy the Farmville maker at the start of the year. It was about early January, I think the second week of, as well as the establishment of T2 mobile game business, which will operate under Zynga. We talked about this briefly on the show when it happened. However, Zynga is mainly a mobile developer, we didn't get into many details of it. I believe at the time this was the biggest video game deal to ever happen, but it was soon quickly dwarfed by the Microsoft Activision deal. This is the future for the next foreseeable years. Consolidation of the video game space. You're going to start seeing medium fish buying smaller fish. That's what happens with the Embracer Group constantly gobbling up small studios. You're going to see medium studios getting gobbled up by the big boys, which is what's happening with Activision buying, or Microsoft buying Activision and Bethesda, with the rumored Square Sony purchase, with the Take-Two Zynga purchase. This is the norm now. Expect to see more of it. Final news story on a little bit more of a happier tone because it deals with free games. This is a tweet from AT&T. Odd, I know, but an interesting proposition. It seems that AT&T users, you have to have a working, an account in good standing with AT&T to take advantage of this. But if you do, you can play both Control and Batman Arkham Knight for free. And it uses Google Stadia tech. I don't know why it's Google's immersive stream for games. It's like they're trying to avoid saying the name Stadia, but it's essentially Stadia. Awesome. You can go to that link right down there, att.com/playmore, to play both Control and Batman Arkham Knight and to get an idea of how video game streaming works on your computer. I fully admit that this is designed to lure you into buying more stuff eventually, but if you're curious to know what an actual streaming experience would be like, this is the way to do it. So awesome. If you're an AT&T customer, be sure to take a look at that. We have two delays I want to mention real quick before we get into new releases. Tika has been delayed till 2023. Tika is that adorable island-looking platformer from the development team that is basing it in New Caledonia. I believe that this was shown off at the Game Awards last year for the first time. I can't quite remember. But it just looks very peaceful and relaxing. I do want to get a hold of it. It has, however, been delayed till 2023. And Redout 2, the futuristic racing game that looks a lot like Wipeout, has been delayed as well. It's supposed to come out this week. It is now June 16th. Although we have two game delays, that does not mean that we don't have some new things coming out as well. We have a little bit of new releases that I want to get into. First up, Hard Space Shipbreaker is leaving early access, and I couldn't be happier. Equipped with cutting-edge salvage tech, carve and slice spaceships to recover valuable materials. Upgrade your gear to take on more lucrative contracts and pay your billion-credit debt to the Lynx Corporation. You might have seen me play this on stream a couple times. This is when you have that derelict spaceship filling in a dry dock, and you are essentially a construction worker slowly carving this son of a bitch up and putting the valuable pieces of a net down below, throwing the salvageable metals into a furnace, and then throwing all the junk into a matter deconstructor. I don't know what they call it in the game anymore. I really enjoyed my time with Hard Space Shipbreaker during early access, and I stopped playing it because I didn't want to burn myself out on it before the full game came out. Now that it's coming out, I will be playing it likely this week, so be sure to check a look at the stream then. Sorry, I had to get something to drink. Also out this week, Sniper Elite 5 on the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. The award-winning series returns as Carl Felburn fights to uncover Project Kraken in 1944 France. This genre-defined authentic sniping with enhanced kill cam has never been looked or felt better as you fight your across immersive maps to stop the Nazi war machine in its tracks. To start the Nazi war machine. I have no beef against the Sniper Elite games. They're fun, but they're not something that I put too much time into. But I do know it has a pretty good cult following, so I hope it works out for you. Also out this week, Hellslave on the PC. Prevent demons' hordes from unleashing hell on this world in this dark fantasy dungeon crawler. Fight fire, make a deal with the devil, and choose which demon to worship. This looks somewhat budget, but I also like dungeon crawlers, and something about the theme and setting just speak to me directly. I will be taking a look at this week as well. I hope it's good, but I'm going in relatively blind. Rounding out the new releases that I noticed that caught my eye is Out There, Oceans of Time on the PC. Out There, Oceans of Time is a space exploration game that puts you at the helm of an interstellar mission of discovery spanning a vast and vibrant cosmos. This seems to be more of a narrative-driven adventure game, so I'm trying to think of some kind of comparison to it. I would not necessarily expect FTL as much as I would something like, say, In Other Waters, where it seems to be very driven by the plot and the writing as opposed to any hard gameplay mechanics, although there are some gameplay mechanics to it. Just to say there aren't any is disingenuous. But they're really hammering the fact in the description of this game that is more focused on the dialogue than anything else. At least that's the take that I took away from it. Your opinion may differ. And that kind of does it for the new releases that I saw that caught my interest, and that means that's also the end of the show as well. This has been GamePoints 311, and thank you all for showing up. We do stream this show live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right here at twitch.tv/GamePoints, and typically when I'm also not on all kinds of pain and allergy medicine. My apologies for that. If you liked what you saw here, you know, support the stream, you know what to do. Likes, bits, follows, subs, all that good stuff, regardless of where you happen to be watching. You can follow the show on Twitter at GamePoints PC, myself, Stephen Brown, at CapitalistPig21, and you can also join our Discord group. The link is provided down there, as well as all the stories that we talked about today. Once again, thank you all for showing up. This has been GamePoints, and until next week, I'm out of here.